Hi, this is part 3 of my observing video where I'm going to go through the reflection process. So using the Gibbs reflective cycle, first I would like to describe the event, and as I said in my first video, I chose standard 22, which was option 3 on my observing video. And in this portion, I observed a teacher who was facilitating the use of technology in the classroom and actively engaging students through this use of technology. I observed a first and second grade classroom where they were meeting virtually. I work at EDCSD, which is a cyber school in Colorado, and the students all attend school online. So this observation was a class meeting where the students, the teacher, and myself were all in our own homes attending virtually through our system Adobe Connect. I observed the use of technology as it was being used to connect the class virtually and how the teacher used this tool to facilitate the class. However, I also was then able to observe how the students used technology and how they used it to present their own learning on their final projects, which was on an environmental problem and the solutions that they see for that problem in their own lives. So I observed technology on many different levels. I observed how the teacher used the technology to meet virtually. I observed how the students were engaged through this use of technology. And then I also observed how the students used their own technology tools to present their projects. And then finally, how the students were engaged in those products through whatever medium was used to present. During the class, I was taking notes on many different factors. First, I was looking at the student webcams and seeing if I could view engagement there. I also watched the student projects themselves, and I viewed how the teacher was using the technology and her ease of use in moving through different portions of Adobe Connect. One thing I did not plan on observing, but it came to my attention while I was watching the class, is the comments that the teacher was making to facilitate discussion. So while I was in this classroom specifically viewing technology, actually another issue sort of came to my attention as I was watching, and that's really what I focused on more in my critique of this class. So going back to the engagement of the students were highly engaged, and I could observe this through the student webcams and also listening to their comments after each presentation. They gave very specific examples to what they saw, showing that they were engaged and listening. It was clear that the teacher provided lots of different technology tools for the students beforehand in previous lessons, and that the students were encouraged to use whichever medium fit their needs the best. Student choice was obviously very clear in this project, just because I saw so many different tools being used to present their information. Students made reflections on the projects after each one was presented, and their comments were good as well. They were not surface level, and they made comments that varied all the way from the actual content that was in the projects, but also what tools were being used in the projects themselves. So again, their specific comments and their active listening and engagement was very clear. And then, like I had said, I also noted the teacher's comments as each student finished their projects, and I made quite a few comments on my notes about her using comments such as good and great or good job when the students were finished, which kind of caught my attention as not being meaningful feedback. So that's really what I ended up focusing on throughout my observation. So moving on to stage 2, my feelings during the class, I was very impressed with the ease with which the students and the teachers interacted using Adobe Connect. This was a new program to them this year. They had used GoToMeeting in previous years, and so they obviously had developed the skills to become clearly very comfortable interacting. Students understood the expectations and norms for the class. They were all very comfortable and they understood the use of webcams, the use of their headsets, raising their hands in order to make comments or ask questions. I was impressed with the specific examples that the students were using when they were critiquing each other's environment projects. One thing that did bother me also, in addition to the teacher's comments, was that they were only asked to give positive feedback. And while that is an element that's important, I don't know that it gave the students as much meaningful feedback to improve for next time. So one thing that I would talk to the teacher about would be having the students give one positive and then one thing to work on, or one thing that could be improved next time. So like I said, the teacher's comments kind of bothered me. As the students finished, she always said great or good job or good, without any real meaningful feedback for the students. And I think that that was then feeding into what the students were doing. I actually think the students gave very specific feedback, but only on positive things. So I think maybe thinking about how they can increase their higher order thinking skills and give helpful critiques for the next time might be a next step for this class. So moving into stage 3 then, my evaluation, I think that the teacher and the students were excellent at using the technology of Adobe Connect and managing the classroom flow. I think that the evaluation that I could give to the teacher would be for her to think about her comments after each student presentation. It really just seems like a habit of hers, maybe a time filler almost, or a social expectation for her to say great, good job after each student finishes without it having much meaning. So it doesn't model critical and meaningful commenting to the kids. They, I think, would end up picking up the habit of just saying good, great job, and not wanting to maybe hurt other people's feelings just because they're seeing this modeled by their teacher. It would actually be better if she just withheld her comments altogether, I think, and allowed the students to give their feedback first. So this way it doesn't get modeled as a habit or a space filler in conversation. I also found that one thing that they could work on next time would be to give critical comments in addition to their positive comments. However, I do think that actually they were picking up on that as they would give positive feedback to the other projects. They would comment on, wow, that was great that he used a video, or that was great that she used pictures. So I think that intuitively they actually were noticing the weaknesses in their own projects by seeing what the other students were doing. However, it might be a good idea to bring that more to the forefront by actually verbalizing the things that each student could do next time to improve their projects. Moving on to stage 4, analysis. The use of Adobe Connect seems to be working very well. I think that that's a tool we should keep using. The student presentations using Adobe Connect to present also went very well. The students seemed to all be able to hear and view the projects without any problem. And then the students were able to use technology to present their ideas well. I thought it was very interesting that even the student who created a paper poster, the students seemed wowed by that as a medium for presenting information, as if it was a novel idea to draw pictures with crayons. So I think it's funny that the world that these kids live in, everything is so technology focused that actually a poster becomes the unique presentation that they were all most impressed with. Moving forward, I think what I need to do first is to watch this recording of the teacher and maybe make a transcript of her comments. I could maybe make a tally of positive versus negative comments, or meaningful versus meaningless comments. I could actually make a transcript of the actual words she said each time. This would make it easier to talk to the teacher about not having it be some overall observation that I saw in her class, but something that I would actually have data to present to her and say, here's how many times I saw you say this, or here's how many times I saw you say this, and give her some actual data that she could look at and think about as a habit of hers when she teaches. So moving then on to my stage 5 conclusion, I think that teacher feedback is probably something that my school could use some PD on. We focus so much on teaching great content and the skills, the strategies the teachers use while teaching the content itself. We focus quite a bit on the creation of meaningful projects and then how students can present those projects. And I don't know that we've really spent a lot of time teaching teachers how to give great feedback. And that's such an important part of the learning cycle, that if the students aren't being given feedback that they can take action on and improve on, then we're not going to see as great of strides as we could otherwise. So this teacher feedback sends signals to the kids, I think, too, because it might have unintended results. They might feel that you shouldn't hurt other people's feelings, or that you shouldn't give critical feedback to other students. And so in the long run, this might hurt any kind of peer revisions or peer feedback as they learn to mentor each other. So as I mentor and coach other teachers, I need to be careful of this too. I almost would like to watch my own videos of conversations I have with teachers and see if there's unintended implications that I'm having on my teachers when I'm coaching them. Maybe I'm guilty of this as well, and I'm just not aware of it without watching a video. We all know that meaningful feedback is going to promote learning, and so this would apply to the students and the teachers. So moving into stage 6 of my action plan, first I plan to talk to this teacher and give her feedback on my comments. She could watch the video herself and really focus on that and think about other comments she could make in each of those situations. I think I'd probably find the same thing in other teacher lessons if I observe them. So moving forward, I think that maybe a good PD lesson around teacher commenting and feedback might be a good use of our time during our teacher trainings. We could focus on articles and research on the matter, and what kinds of best practices that teachers can use in all teaching, but then also specifically in online teaching, because I think there are some different situations that maybe don't come up in a regular classroom. So with this goal in mind, I would want the teachers to practice their use of feedback comments and improve their strategies. Maybe I could make a rubric or a tally system that they could use in observing each other, and then me observing them and giving them feedback, and then also them watching their own recordings of their classes and giving themselves feedback. And it might be a great learning situation for all of the teachers in improving feedback.